Let's be honest for a second. When you're deep in the trenches of pregnancy, loss, or the postpartum haze, the last thing you have energy for is endless Googling to find a provider you can actually trust. The Vermont Birth Network changes that for those of us living in the Green Mountain State. It's a dedicated network consisting entirely of local, Vermont-based professionals, from midwives and lactation consultants to loss and bereavement support, all across the state. It's scannable, deeply supportive, and focused on elevating the standard of care for Vermont birthing individuals. If you or a perinatal individual in your life needs real local support from providers who are rooted right here in Vermont, skip the overwhelming internet searches, head straight to vermontbirthnetwork.com and build the local team you deserve. Welcome to Quiet Connection, a podcast dedicated to ending the stigma surrounding perinatal mental health. I'm Chelsea. If you've ever sat in a hospital room feeling like your world was spinning while you were forced to stand still, today's episode is for you. I'm connecting with Julie Hatch. Julie spent 30 years as a neonatal nurse practitioner, an adrenaline junkie by trade who found her home in the high-stakes environment of the NICU. But Julie isn't just about monitors and medicine. She's a bridge builder. Julie reminds us that even in the middle of a medical crisis, hope is the one thing we can't let go of. Here's Julie. Today, I am here with Julie. Julie, how are you?
I'm great, Chelsea. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I am okay. I'm really excited to chat with you today. Julie, I feel like I'm saying this so much lately. Julie, you are another guest who has been so gracious with me in my having to schedule and reschedule. So I appreciate you.
Not a problem. That's life.
It is life. I'm so excited to have you on, Julie. I was just talking to you before hitting record. I love every season to have at least one or two people who are sort of what we would call like experts in the field, who sort of walk this journey along with those of us who have experienced all the challenges that may come with having kids. And you are one of those people. Rather than me list down all the things that I know about you, I'd love to give you the opportunity to sort of introduce yourself and let us know what it is that you are doing in the world of maternal health and neonatal health.
Okay. Well, I am a nurse practitioner. I first went to school to be a pediatric nurse practitioner, which is great for child health and normal newborn health care. Then I went back to school to get my neonatal nurse practitioner certification, which enabled me to work in the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, which I really liked. For an adrenaline junkie, it's a perfect kind of a place. So I spent 30 years in the neonatal ICU, interspersed with a little bit of primary care pediatrics. And then not too long ago, I left Western medicine. I became an acupuncturist, where I still like to treat kids and newborns and mothers, although it's fewer of those kinds of patients. But so I have 30 years in the NICU, and I have 3 boys of my own who, knock on wood, are still alive and well and thriving.
That's important, yes.
And then recently I've written a novel, which is totally fiction. It's a medical thriller, which takes place in the neonatal intensive care unit. So that's part of my experience of working in maternal child health, but in a fictional way.
Yeah, I mean, your experiences led you to that, to writing that book. And I've said this to a few guests now. I feel like everyone I talk to has written a book, and my stack of books now from all of my guests that I have to read, like my TBR is like over my head now. So yeah, it's on the list. It's on the list. I just have a few to get through in between all of my romantic-y stuff that keeps me sane. I'm reading my guests' books as well. So, you got to balance, right? You got to keep it balanced.
Wow. That keeps you busy, I'm sure.
I mean, yeah, until 1 a.m. when I should be sleeping. But anyway, that's enough about me. So, yeah, I'm super curious what led you into wanting to work in pediatric nursing just in general?
It's always what I've wanted to do. From nursing school, I liked the pediatric rotation the most. And when I got out of school, most nurses are told to, or new grads are told to go into med surg, learn how to change bandages and, do the routine nursing stuff. But I was fortunate enough to interview with a recruiter who with a hospital that was just opening a brand new pediatric intensive care unit. And she said, "No, you don't have to do that stuff. You can go. We want to train you right from the get go. We want to train you how we want you to be able to work." And it was the best choice I made to go right into pediatric ICU. Never looked back. And so then I did that for a while as a regular nurse, as a bedside nurse. And then I went back to school to become a nurse practitioner where I could use those skills in primary care pediatrics, working with healthy or episodic illnesses kids. But then I got another opportunity to work in the neonatal intensive care unit. I do like the intensive care. I'm a pretty mellow, calm person, so the intensive care unit works perfectly for me. So so all those 30 years, I never looked back. And now when I'm an acupuncturist, I work far less with kids. And I miss it terribly. And
Mm,
I am now doing medical volunteer trips to help with kids. So it's just in my nature, I guess, to work with kids, sick kids
yeah.
especially. Mm.
Yeah. And it does, I mean, I think it does take that kind of personality, right? It has to be something that's in you.
Yeah.
Yeah, from a lot
I
of the
don't know.
people that I've met,
I
it's
don't
just
know how
something
it
that's in
got
you.
there or where it's from, but it's been there and it's part of me. And so can't argue it. Got to go with it.
No. Yeah, you follow your passion. I'm curious, you've said too, like, you kind of I don't even this is my other warning that I forgot to tell you. My brain will close all the tabs sometimes, and that just happened.
That's a
Um,
great way to put it.
oh, yeah, I'll be halfway through a sentence, and then it's like, "System shutdown." We roll with it, it's okay. So, you said you were drawn especially to the intensive care, neonatal intensive care. What about that setting sort of drew you in? You said you're a pretty calm individual. I would assume you have to be when navigating babies who are kind of having episodic crises. But tell
Yeah.
me a little bit more about what felt like home in the NICU.
Well, for one thing, it's a team environment where there are many practitioners that are taking care of one baby, many nurses, doctors, social workers, nutritionists. It's a whole huge team that keeps these kids alive and well and able to go home. And equally part of that team are the parents. Not all parents want to be part of the team. Some parents sort of bowed out of the whole responsibility thing, but that was far and few between. So the team includes the parents, and that is really rewarding to be able to work with parents in helping to save their babies. And more times than not, certainly the outcome was good. Yes, there were some very sad outcomes, and that's part of the nature of the beast, but much more was a happy ending where the babies go home with the families and the families are prepared to take care of them at home. And it just brings it full circle from it's just the whole team involvement really involvement in helping these kids, these tiny little, super vulnerable little babies.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes so much sense. And it kind of mirrors our whole expectation of like motherhood and what we hope to be, right? Like you're talking about a village in the NICU. And that's kind of what the dream is for going into parenting. It's not always the reality, but in the NICU at least for you, you had that village. You were all relying on each other.
Yes.
In that
And the
vein, oh,
sorry.
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. I
And I
don't
was gonna say that there's also because it is really a village and not just the healthcare workers, but the other parents. There was always places where parents could hang out together. Sometimes they were squeezed in right near each other. So the stories that mothers and the support that mothers and fathers, but I speak really more about mothers, got from each other and gave to each other was huge. I know that that was life changing for many of the mothers of the babies there.
Yeah. Do you think that is unique to the hospital that you were working in, or do you think that that's a general I have very limited experience with the NICU. My They called my daughter a flyby. She was only in there for a few hours.
Good.
Um, but so I never physically even entered the NICU because I was still in recovery. But do you think that that's unique to where you were working, or is that kind of like a universal camaraderie between NICU families?
I think that it is well, in the old NICU that I worked in, it was they really were babies and parents stacked in no, well, not stacked in, but all in the same big room. So it was very little privacy and it was not ideal, which is why they built a new NICU, which is how most NICUs are now, where they have your private rooms, maybe 2 babies and 2 families in one room, but usually it's 1 room, 1 family. But they offer I mean, for babies that are gonna be in there for weeks on end, the parents definitely connect, and social services helps to facilitate that, and there are classes and there are, get-togethers, which obviously are optional, so if you choose to get some support from other mothers, it's readily available.
I'm super curious because, again, I have my very limited view of the NICU from my guests and just from research. What are some misconceptions you think are held about the NICU and the type of babies that are being treated in the NICU?
Probably some misconceptions might be and I would say I sort of use the word misconceptions lightly because maybe sometimes they're not so misconceived. Maybe they're um, unfortunately accurate in that the parents sometimes don't have as much, in spite of what I had just said, parents don't have as much um, access to their babies at certain times. And there's always a reason for that. Like there's an emergency going on or there are a million reasons why that could be, but parents can still feel like they don't have access to their baby at any particular given time. And the staff is always very sensitive to that and aware of that. And that's constantly a work in progress of how to make it so that parents are have access and invited to be in with everything. But there's also the HIPAA privacy. So that if you're talking about one baby, another parent can't be there. So there are some problems with being able to be with your baby 24/7, but it's always being worked on. Let's see. I think, sometimes there's issues with siblings, baby's siblings that wanna come in and visit, and again, that's a really a safety. You have to screen them for chicken pox and have they had a cold. I mean, if a premature baby gets a cold, it's devastating, so we can be a little bit strict about that, about not letting siblings in or certain nights, certain evenings for a couple hours, they come in and they get all scrubbed up and but they're not as easily they can't as freely come and go as the parents can, so again, that's not really a misconception, that really can happen, but again, try to be aware of it. I think that's what comes to mind first and foremost.
Yeah, yeah. I those are things that I wouldn't have thought of. My mind had originally gone to, like, the types of babies and the types of illnesses you were seeing. I think
Ah,
and no, so I'm so glad that you brought that up because those are things that I wouldn't have thought of. I just know, like, from my experience when we talk about the NICU and when we're doing a lot of advocacy for, like, NICU awareness and stuff, we're talking about micro preemies and we're talking about little teeny tiny babies, and that's not always the case. I'm assuming the majority of the patients that you saw in the NICU were premature babies, but that's not the only reason to be in the NICU.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, the micro preemies probably definitely take up the bulk of the time and the staff, but there are babies that can be born full term and have what's called meconium aspiration, where they inhale their poop on their way out, and that can be deadly, easily, it can be a fatal problem, and so they are really intensive. They're probably the sickest babies in the NICU, even sicker than the tiny little micro preemies. So that's really serious, and then we also get the flybys like you that sometimes,
Yep.
the baby will come out and show, a sign of perhaps possibly having an infection or the mother had an infection. We have to watch the baby really carefully, and so they come in for 48 hours of antibiotics. Everything pans out to be fine, and then they're on their way. So there's a fair amount of that where they're just in for, 48 hours or maybe 4 or 5 days, and then they're on the way out. But by far, the bulk of it is definitely premature, and I don't know what the percentage of micro premiums is. A lot, but also babies from 28 to 34 weeks is a pretty common population. There are also full term babies that don't always need NICU, but sometimes start off there with drug withdrawal, neonatal abstinence syndrome. That if the mother was on treated with methadone or not treated with methadone, was taking whatever the reason is, the babies come in with signs of withdrawal. Once we get that captured and we can medicate the baby adequately, then they can go to a regular floor. They don't need intensive care. Once we see that they don't need intensive care, once they prove themselves as just needing medication to withdraw. I think those are probably the big ones, like you had said.
No, I appreciate that. And like I said, I love it too. It's almost my favorite when my guests take my questions in a direction that I wasn't expecting because I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I got to learn something." In following kind of that same like learning about the roles in the NICU, what was your role? You're a pediatric nurse practitioner, NICU nurse practitioner. What does that mean though? Like what was your interface with the patients? What would that look like?
With the patients, meaning the babies or the parents, or both?
I know, or both. I use it as a broad term. Yeah, what did it
Yep.
look like with the babies? What did it look like with the families? What was your role?
As nurse practitioners, filled in medical schools for the whole time I was there, the medical schools were cutting down the number of hours that residents had to spend in the NICU. Most of them didn't like it or could spend in the NICU. So they were condensing that. So to be able to get the bodies in there to take care of the babies, in the 90s, the NICUs were just blowing up with babies. They were expanding so fast, and there weren't enough doctors. So they hired nurse practitioners to do what the residents do. I once made a joke that I was like a third-year resident over and over and over and over and over again. Every year I started my third year of residency. But we had a ton of autonomy. We had a great team to work with, and we worked with a fellow, a doctor doing his fellowship in neonatology. He had direct supervision over us, and then there was an attending who had direct supervision over the whole NICU. So I learned a ton. Every day I'd go in not knowing what I was always learning and what exactly was gonna happen. You never knew. It was always an exciting job. And so that was what mostly my role with the babies was just all of their care, figuring out what kind of tests they need, what kind of fluids they need, what kind of medications they need, what kind of interventions they need, um, goals, plans of care, and so to include the parents. Parents came after, so there was rounds in the morning, which could take started at 7 a.m. and could sometimes go until 10 or 11 a.m. And then to see the parents and give them the update of what we talked about on rounds. And then you do your work for the bulk part of the day. And then you have to go to sign out rounds. So we were on rounds all the time, talking about the babies and coming up with what we're going to do for the next 8 hours, the next 12 hours. It was never a dull moment and very little downtime because there was always a lot to do. There were occasions when there weren't so many babies in the NICU, but that not very often.
And from what I understand, it's just kind of it's its own environment. The NICU is its own environment. And like I said, I'm learning through parents who have experienced it. Like the transition into parenthood via the NICU is a very, very different experience, that you can't
Oh,
understand unless you have gone through it. What were some common themes you saw in the parents that you were meeting? Or were there any common themes in terms of, like, I don't even know the right word, just their experiences, I guess, how they came into the NICU initially and how they left? Were there any common themes throughout the stays?
yeah, it's such an adjustment. It is not at all what you expect to have happen when you decide to have a baby or don't even decide to just that you are pregnant. That is not what you expect to have happen at all. And it steals away really important, or can, and we try not to let it, but it really does steal away important parts of those initial minutes, hours, days of motherhood. Where the bonding, we try hard to allow bonding to happen, but and the little ones that are on ventilators, they can't be held very much. That's one of the hardest things for parents. They wanna touch the baby, and if the baby's really unstable, just a slightest touch will make them, drop their heart rate and drop their saturations, and they just can't tolerate it, and that's so hard for parents to say, "Why can't I touch my baby?" And it's just not good for the baby, which is just so counterintuitive for a new parent, but it's true. And again, we try to parents, when they first deliver, and again, I'm talking about the premature ones. We try to get the mother in there to be able to see the baby, but he's in his incubator or he's wrapped up in Saran wrap, which we do to help preserve heat. They're very inaccessible to the parents, and we try to make a point of explaining everything to them. But that's probably one of those heartbreaking things is they just can't touch their baby, and they're a brand new mother, and that is just not the way it's supposed to be. Um,
Yeah.
Another thing was with breastfeeding. Breastfeeding, we try to encourage, well, we did encourage and did all kinds of things to help make it happen, but it still was not the experience that you expect of breastfeeding a regular full-term healthy baby. Some other things, the not knowing of what's gonna happen, and sometimes we would have really sick babies and they would wanna know, is he or she gonna live, or are they gonna be blind, or, they needed answers. What's gonna happen? And you just can't. We don't have crystal balls. And I learned that the hard way. I would say to parents, "Oh, no, it's okay. He's gonna get through," and then bad things happen, and I was all wrong. And so it's far worse to do that, I think, than to have to tell them the truth that either we don't know or the dismal truth, or more often it's that we don't know because you don't know. Only God knows what's gonna happen with these little babies. So that's
Yeah.
really hard for parents too. I think those are the big ones, not being able to touch them, especially initially. And but then the happiness when they finally can hold the baby, that first time that they hold the baby, whether it's days later or weeks later sometimes, it's just so happy. It's such a great momentum moment. Such a great moment.
Yeah.
So yeah. And the roller coaster, there's definitely roller coasters. These premature babies are so labile, so they'll have a good day, then they'll have a bad day, or they'll have a terrible 2 hours and then a great 5 hours, and it's a roller coaster for these poor parents that just don't know what to expect, and no well, the practitioners have some idea of what to expect, but emotional, psychological roller coaster with the parents is really challenging, I found.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious too how that impacted your own mental health and well-being because you're kind of on this roller coaster with all of these babies that you're caring for, but then you're also right, like you said, like having parents come to you be like, "Are they okay? Are they gonna survive?" Like they have a lot of questions, they have a lot of fears, and that's valid. So you're on this roller coaster with them, but you're also kind of expected to be like an anchor and like
Yeah.
solid. What how did that impact your own kind of mental health while you were going through it?
I think that I was, lucky fortunate or not fortunate enough to not get too sucked in with the roller coaster. I was better able to be more objective and be the nurse practitioner, not the friend. Sometimes I was could be sort of a friend also in the shoulder to cry on. Absolutely, and those were really, really hard ones to, take care of, but if that's what was called for, if that's what felt right between us, and that's what happened. And it could be really hard, and it was really important to have my colleagues to talk with, and the rest of the team, the social workers. I don't know if you've ever had a social worker on this program, but social workers were, oh my god, they were saviors to all of us, to the families and to the people that work there. So that kind of network support was crucial. But by and large, I wasn't always able to leave it behind when I went home. Sometimes I would bring a lot of it home with me. But by and large, I could sort of separate myself from the emotional roller coaster.
Which I think is was probably I don't even wanna say I think, that's kind of a little bit of a superpower or a bit of a superpower because you were able to maybe compartmentalize that piece of it, you were able to be a stable, like, resource so you could care for the baby and also be there for the families.
Yeah, that's a good word. The compartmentalizing is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I struggle with that. So you have that superpower. That is not a superpower that I have. I would not do very well in a NICU or intensive care situation, but
Yeah,
that's why I said it takes a special kind of person.
it does. I guess there are people that start off and just can't do it at all, and then people that just love it. It's like any other job, I suppose. I mean,
Yeah.
I would have a hard time working with geriatrics, let me tell you.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
sick
I don't think
babies
I
is
could do that
fine.
either. Yeah, and it's so interesting. And you mentioned something earlier, and obviously, like, we can't know unless we did, like, a survey or whatever. But why do you think doctors are shying away from the NICU or residents are shying away from the NICU? What do you think it is that sort of pulls them from that?
I think that when you go into so they start off going into pediatrics, and when you go into pediatrics, you're taking care of you have a big spot in your heart for kids. The NICU is very technical, and sometimes you even lose sight of the fact that there's a baby there. There's all these machines around, these tubes and alarms, and you gotta do this, you gotta do that, and sometimes you lose sight of the fact that there's a baby there. So it's a little less I mean, yeah. So I think that when the residents come through, also they have not a whole lot of time. They have a month here and a month there and then a month there. So they can't get really involved in it unless they choose to say, "Oh, wow, I really like this," and then they choose to spend more time there. But it's not exactly what you go into pediatrics for unless you like this specialty. And it's a lot
Yeah,
of hours. Well, I suppose I don't know if it's more hours than the regular rotations, but it's a lot of hours, a lot of intensive hours.
yeah, that makes sense. It was just a general curiosity. I this is being fully transparent. I have like zero knowledge of the medical field outside of that. I really like medical dramas. Like, I'm thinking like the pit and ER and things like that. But it like it's a common theme there too. Even if you've to bring it current, like if you've watched the pit at all, which I'm not sure if you have. Like,
Just
have you
started
watched the pit?
watching it. I love that
Uh
show.
it so it's incredible, number 1. Number 2, I'm not the only one who feels this way. A lot of, parents that I've spoken to who have experienced birth trauma or who have experienced any kind of medical trauma are finding the pit to be healing because it's
Mm,
showing us the humanity behind the medical system.
mhm.
But
Like,
something
good
that I've
point.
picked up on, I'm not gonna do spoilers for you. This isn't a spoiler because it's season 2 and you just started it. In season 2, there is and this is also a viral, like, meme right now, there's baby Jane Doe. There's a baby Jane Doe, but no one wants to touch the case. All the ER doctors, like, don't wanna touch the case, and I kind of find that like, in back in the day in ER and stuff, it's like everybody avoided peds and everybody so it was just a general curiosity of, like, I wonder why but you explained it perfectly, like, it's very technical, and the patient is almost removed from the situation at times, yeah?
Right. Yes. I haven't gotten to this part of the pit, so I will look forward to it. The other thing that comes to mind so I don't know what but something that comes to mind is, um, why is the baby a baby Jane Doe? Do they not know what's the backstory? Is it a really
Well,
sad story that brought
that's why I said I'm not gonna give you any spoilers.
So why is the baby in the so they may not wanna touch the whole social part that goes with it. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either, but you'll get there, and then you can giggle to yourself, and you'll
Yes.
understand why everyone is saying "Baby Jane Doe" right now.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, that was just yeah, so it's just kind of been a curiosity for me, and then when you reinforced that, when you said, like, a lot of residents weren't going into that, and so nurse practitioners stepped in and kind of took over that role, I was like, "Oh, interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe this is pop culture,
Yeah.
mirroring reality." But anyway, that was a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
That was a rabbit
No,
hole.
that's good. That's good.
Um, so you started to talk about it a little bit, and I would love to dive a little bit deeper into it. For families, anyone listening who has had a NICU experience or maybe supported loved ones who had a NICU experience, or for families like you said, you don't know and you don't prepare for that. You don't go into pregnancy saying, "Oh, we're gonna get ready for the NICU." What are some things you can expect when entering the NICU? Like, what are some things to be aware of that you will see, that you will hear? That what are some commonalities that parents can kind of, I like to say, be prepared, not scared. So
Yeah.
having an idea of what that environment looks like and sounds like.
I try to in the beginning of my novel, I worked hard at bringing that across because really wanted to bring across what I've experienced. And, um, this also takes place more in the old NICU. The newer NICUs are much better in terms of noise control and crowd control, but nonetheless, there can be a lot of noise. And, you think, "Oh, you should be going into a nice quiet dark place where babies are." No, it's the lights are on. We're much more aware of what we're doing or what we shouldn't be doing, and because the effects that it can have on the babies. But nonetheless, it does happen. The lights are on. The alarms are blaring. People are running around. Hey, we need somebody in this room. Blah, blah, blah. And so there's a lot of frenetic activity. And again, with a new NICU, you're a little less aware of it. But once you're there enough, you become more and more aware. You get tuned into what the emergencies are that are coming in. Because even though there's better sequestration, like from room to room and windows in between them to block down the noise, you're still very aware of the emergencies that are going on. So it can be very frenetic energy. It can be. And again, people are trying to make it so that it's a little bit calmer. But anyways, that is the biggest thing that I think of is the sound, the alarms, and the people running around. All that kind of stuff is hard to swallow when you first get there. You have to scrub. You're constantly being aware of not bringing any germs in. I don't People don't mask, but you have to scrub your hands and you put on a gown and all those ways to keep your baby protected from germs coming in from the outside. And that just gets to be a way of life. You get so that you're always washing your hands. It's
Yeah.
just the nature of the beast. Other things, I think it's really the way that people run around and are so busy tending to sick babies. And sometimes you just want to stay away. Let me just be with my baby. And even that can be hard if they're in an incubator in an isolette with plastic all around them, a plastic isolette. There's ways you can put your hands in there, but there's a barrier between you and your baby. And again, depending on the age and for how long that they're in the NICU and what's wrong with them, that can last for quite a while. And you have to be satisfied with just touching them with your hand through the little porthole of the incubator. But so to answer your question, I think that the noise and the activity is the biggest thing to get used to, hardest thing to get used to.
I will say from my guests who have had babies in the NICU, that is the one thing that they say. They even to this day, even when their kids are grown, they say, I can still hear the alarms and I can still hear all the machines." So, that
Yeah.
aligns. Yeah. That aligns with parent experiences for sure.
Yeah.
What were if again, you said, like, you were pretty good at being able to separate, you could be the shoulder to cry on if you needed to be, but were there any, like, go-to words of wisdom you would give to families entering the NICU or even during the hard days? I mean, like you said, you can't give them, like, "This is all gonna be fine, it's all gonna be okay," but just to kind of be able to get to the next moment.
Yeah. Hope is one thing you can't take away from anybody. People can be going through absolute hell. And as long as they can hold on to some kind of hope, that can help you get through to the next moment and the next day and the next day because you don't know. And I think that the more optimistic you can be, hopeful that you can be, the better it is for your baby. They can feel that. I know that they can feel the energy that a mother has or is emitting. So if you can show hope and I can't say positivity because it's very hard to be positive sometimes in there. To hope? I mean, some people go online and, Google everything to find out, and that's really a bad idea. I would say
Yeah.
don't go to Doctor Google to find out
No.
your questions that you have. Go to the doctors and the nurses and the nurse practitioners to get your answers. Just whatever faith you have, if you have a faith, or just faith of your baby that your baby will make it. Whether there's no guarantee in the what kind of a baby you're gonna be bringing home, but I heard so many parents say, "I don't care what you give me, I just want my baby alive and to come home with me. I don't care what kind of disabilities there are or anything like that." Because the life is just it's a beautiful life no matter what, and I don't know, just stick with the hope that things will work out the way that they're supposed to work out.
Yeah. Hope is so powerful. Hope is something that we talk about a lot. It's something we talk about on the podcast. It's something I talk about in my personal life, holding on to hope. And my biggest thing is like, if you can't hold on to hope, you have to have someone who can hold it for you. And I don't know if that,
Yeah,
yeah.
nice.
So I think too, for a lot of people and for a lot of guests that I've spoken to, you guys, the nurses, are the ones that are holding the hope for a lot of them. Like I've done series on social media from NICU families, and I've spoken to so many NICU families on the podcast, and the one thread through every experience is how much they appreciated their nurses. I don't often hear about
Yeah.
the
Oh, that's nice.
doctors. I don't often hear about the doctors, but I always hear about the nurses, and I think that speaks to the level of care that you're not only able to give to their babies, but to the parents as well. So, um, this is my general blanket thank you to you and all nurses, neonatal nurses, NICU nurses, pediatric nurses. I love nurses in general. I think nurses run hospitals, and I think they just are doing, yeah, I thought, no shade to the doctors in my life, but nurses are a different breed. Nurses and CNAs, you guys do the real work.
Yeah, we go it's yeah, we're coming at it the patient from a different perspective. And also, in the NICU, we're there every day that we're on call or that we're on service. We don't we have the same baby through the whole hospitalization, so we have a lot of continuity for the families, which goes a long ways. Doctors will come in for a month and then leave, go on to their next rotation, and so there's a lot of discontinuity, but the nurses provide a lot of continuity and a familiar face, and we know the baby and we know the history, and so makes it
Yeah.
easier for everybody.
Yeah, that's why nurses are freaking rock stars. Okay. You answered so many of my questions without me even
Oh,
having to
good.
ask you. So, no, it means that you're a pro. So, let's transition a little bit to what you're doing now, because now, like you said, you're still pulled back. You're still pulled back to that environment, but you're doing more of the traditional Chinese medicine, which I'm also super interested in. Mm, Do you find that your time working in the NICU impacts how you work as like a functional practitioner or Chinese medicine practitioner at all?
Um, Not so much. Western medicine and Eastern medicine are so different, which is why
Yeah.
I left which is why I left Western medicine. Western medicine absolutely, especially in the NICU, has so much going for it. I mean, we wouldn't be here without it. But, I chose Chinese medicine because I was more interested in holistic preventative promoting health and preventing illness rather than treating illness, which I liked when I did it, but I wanted to get into something more holistic, and when I realized that Western medicine is primarily medications and surgeries, I thought, "Yeah, no, there's gotta be something more to health." It's nice to have a blend of what I know from Western medicine and to blend it with Eastern medicine. That helps a lot because when people come in and talk about their Western diagnosis, I look at it from the Eastern perspective, but I am able to take what they say from the Western perspective. And so it's really I'm really lucky to be able to blend the two and I think deliver even a more complete kind of a treatment based on my understanding from both perspectives. But I
Yeah.
love Chinese medicine. It's so rich and there's so much to it.
Mhm. I am learning so much just about Chinese culture in general. Again, this is just a personal like rabbit hole.
Mm.
Um the more I learn, the more I love, and learning about traditional Chinese medicine has been something that's been very, very interesting to me. So, when I saw that is what you were doing, I was like, "Oh, another thing that, like, I get to gush about a little bit."
Yeah.
But the reason I asked the question is because something you said earlier too, like, the parent's energy impacts the baby. Like, even if you can't touch baby, your energy and your hope is being transmitted to baby, and energy work is such a big part of especially, like, acupuncture, and, I mean, you can speak more on that than I can, but
Yeah, energy work is a big part of acupuncture, and there's not, at least when I was in the NICU, there was not a lot of time or room for thinking about energy. But I absolutely believe, and I always did believe it, that when your baby's inside of you, your emotions, the messages that you're sending your baby, and I think it's sometimes hard for pregnant mothers to appreciate that, but it has so much to do with how the baby's going to be as a little person. And in Chinese medicine, the time of conception, I forgot what the whole thing was, but from the moment of conception is when all kinds of things are set. I shouldn't say in stone, but are starting the trajectory for the baby from the time of conception, before you
yeah,
even know you're pregnant,
yeah.
can implant a bunch of stuff into the child. So yeah, the energy, and and then definitely, I mean, gosh, parenting. I was a parenting coach for a little while. What we silently, not with language and not even with body language, but what we exude to our children is so important, and they know how to pick up on every little ray of energy from us, good, bad, or indifferent. So you just want to you want to expend as much positive energy as you can. You want to give them all the positivity that you can.
And it relates to, like, obviously, we're primarily, like, a perinatal mental health and, like, birth trauma and all of this stuff are my guests, that's where their stories go, but it's not to say even, like, you have to be roses and sunshine and rainbows all the time. If you're
Right.
not in that space, if you don't have that energy to be able to give to them, that taking care of yourself is the best gift that you can give yourself and your
Absolutely.
kids. Yeah, so that you can bring your energy back to the game and that you can feel good about it. So it's not a failure. It's not a failure if you're not feeling those positive things. But I do believe you that the
That's a
energy
very good point.
yeah.
Yeah, because for parents, as parents, it's you can't possibly feel that way all the time at all. So yes. But so what you're right, self-care and giving yourself some love and attention and caring rubs off eventually on the kids. The best thing you can do, because then you're in a better place to face the hard times and the not so fun, not so positive times. It's a very, very good point. Very important point.
Well, and it's modeling to them to do the same thing, right? It's modeling to our kids that it's okay to take care of your needs so that you can be the best
Yep.
version of yourself. I never got the impression from you that you expected everyone to be roses and sunshine all the time. I kind of wanted to make that connection that I am a little I call myself woo woo. I'm a little woo woo. I believe in energy, and I believe that our energy really impacts our relationships, and when you're not in a place where you can give the best version of yourself because you don't have it, you can't access it, you gotta take care of you, and that energy radiates throughout your whole family. So, yeah,
Yep.
that struck a
You're
chord
right
with
on.
me. Yeah. Well, and a great way to not that not that this is like a cure or anything, but I do not give advice. I don't promote different things, but I will say for in my own experience, something that has helped me in the past, not with my acute perinatal issues, but with my mental health in the past, acupuncture has been incredibly helpful. Um, and so it isn't, I'm not telling you what to do, listeners. I'm not saying go get acupuncture or go do this, but I'm saying in my personal experience, this is something that was helpful for me, and I think if it's something that aligns with your belief, give it a shot. Give it a shot. Why not?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that acupuncture is for just for pain, headaches
Yeah.
or muscle pain, but there's so like I say, it's a very rich medicine and does so much more than that. And I won't say I specialize, but I really enjoy treating women with stress and anxiety, And there are other disorders also, but it can help so much. I love it when a patient gets off the thing and goes, "Oh, I feel so great." Like their stress is gone and they're
Yes.
can get back into the day. It can be really powerful stuff.
Yeah, it absolutely can. And again, this is just speaking from my personal experience and from the expertise of Julie. um, so to I do want to spend a little bit, just a little bit of time talking about your book. It is a work of fiction, but it's influenced by your experiences in the NICU. You said it's a thriller, which also piques my interest. Tell me a little bit more about that and where it came from.
I can tell you where it came from. Again, in the '90s when things were exploding and administration likes a full NICU because it's a big money maker, and talk about that in the book. The NICU was like, at least it was, the number one money maker in a hospital. It was a women and infants, so it was women's health and babies, but so it was the number one money maker. So administration liked a full NICU, and when there weren't enough babies, they would come through in their little high heels, clicking, saying, "Why aren't there more babies?" And I turned to and so there was one of those down days in the midst of weeks and weeks of really a lot of babies, a lot of patients, really high stress. And we had a down day. And then the next day, it filled up again. And I turned to one of my friends and I said, "What the heck is administration? I won't name names, going out and pulling in these pregnant mothers to make them deliver early so that they would, then fill up the NICU." And that's 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 what I said, and we all laughed and went, "Ah." Well, that's the basis of my book, is that that they're forcing mothers to deliver early in order to fill the NICU, in order to make a buck for the hospital.
Mm.
And, part of it in the book, another component is, pharmaceuticals. Again, we need pharmaceuticals. I'm not dissing them. Sometimes their ethics aren't quite right, and so I get into that a little bit in the book. One of the little subplots is about, the ethics of pharmaceutical companies holding things over parents' heads, but anyhow, so that's where it came from, is that, wow, these doctors must be, or somebody is making these mothers deliver early, and so that's what the whole thing is, that the protagonist delivers early, and so the whole book is about how she finds out who's doing this, why they're doing it, and catching him and proving it and all that kinda stuff.
Yeah, I kind of love that you wrote that because I think anybody listening can can agree that you care deeply about the work that goes on in the NICU and like you keep saying, like there is a place for Western medicine and what we were doing is really important. And you can also look at this and create this work, this work that's like making them have they're just going out there and making people go to I don't wanna laugh, but I do at the same time. I'm like, what a perfect person to write that kind of a book, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
it's one of those things. A lot of people say that writing starts with a what if, like a what if scenario. What if this were to happen, and then this happens, and then the story goes on. And so that's what I was like. What if there was somebody that wants to make these others deliver early? And it does sound it, and it yes, obviously that's very dark, and to the extent that I take it in the book is not really realistic. However, there are times when doctors will do a C-section before they go away on vacation, or
mhm.
they'll induce a baby before the Christmas holiday comes along, or so there's very obviously much milder forms of what I write about, but that does happen. They try to manipulate. I can't say whether they do it for money. I hate to believe that, but just to try to make it best for the baby, the mother, and the doctor. That's how they do.
Yeah.
They will manipulate deliveries for that reason.
Yeah, and that's something that I've heard. I've heard about doctors trying to stick to timelines or trying to get home for dinner or trying to leave for a vacation. And again, we're not dissing doctors,
Mhm.
but it is so there is a any good work of
No.
fiction, any good work of fiction has a nugget of reality in it. So, like I said, like yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like really excited now and I may need to put it higher on my TBR. But anyway,
I will tell you it's a very quick read. The chapters are short and it's a very quick read.
perfect. That's what I need. And I'm always good. Like I love the whole like true crime thriller genre. So yeah, it's going up on the list. I'm excited that we got to talk about your book a little bit. I'm excited that we got to talk about what you're doing today, especially with traditional Chinese medicine, just because I got to nerd out a little bit with you. And I'm really, really grateful that I was able to chat with you and that moms and families are going to hear from someone who was in the trenches just beside them on their journey for so long. And for those who haven't experienced it, to get some insight into what it can look like and maybe be able to not have as many fears going into the NICU. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your patience. I want to thank you for your time and your expertise. And, um, if you could kind of leave my listeners with a message to take away from your story today, from sharing your experience, what would you hope that message would be?
I would hope that that message well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity, Chelsea. It took me back to the years that I were just so, I don't know, interesting, rewarding, exciting, really great 30 years of my professional life. And I think that what I would say is, and again, I don't want to be all rose-colored glasses, but to try to see things as hopefully as possible, with as much hope as possible. And even when you feel like there's no hope left, there always is hope left, and you just never know what tomorrow is going to bring. You never know what 6 hours from now is going to bring, and especially in with any motherhood of any child. It doesn't matter
Yeah?
whether you're in the NICU or whether you're running, people are running around the house. Things, this too shall pass, is one way to put it. And so just hang on to the hope and belief in the better days ahead if you're having a bad day, because there are always better days ahead.
Yeah. And I know that that's gonna resonate, and it's resonating with me today. So, thank you again. It has been such a joy.
Thank you.
Julie, thank you so much for being the anchor for so many families over the years and for sharing your wisdom with me today. Your reminder that our energy as parents reaches our babies, even through the glass of an incubator, is something I think we all needed to hear. You can learn more about Julie and her work by checking the show notes and following the links to her website. Be sure you're following Quiet Connection Podcast on social media for more updates and community support. If you know a NICU family or a mom struggling to find her footing, please share this episode with them. Let's hold that hope for each other. If you're ready to share your own journey through birth trauma or the NICU or anything in between, please reach out via my website, quietconnectionpodcast.com, or by email at chelsea@quietconnectionpodcast.com. I'd love to hold space for you and your story. Join us next time when another story is told and you realize you are not alone. I see you.